questions for the presidential candidates. They each have 2 minutes to respond. Hold your applause until all of the candidates have spoken. The first question is, this semester, partisan battles and the recall election of Senator John Moxeter put ASUC President Roxanne Winston in a position in which she acted as a neutral figure outwardly, despite her personal views on the recall. Given that the role of the ASUC president largely boils down to a figurehead position, where do you feel your personal views would come into play if elected? Again, this semester, partisan battles and the recall election of Senator John Moxeter put ASUC President Roxanne Winston in a position in which she acted as a neutral figure outwardly, despite her personal views on the recall. Given that the role of the ASUC president largely boils down to a figurehead position, where do you feel your personal views would come into play if elected? The order for this question is Oscar, Will, Beverly, Ronald, Annie.
Hey everyone. So first of all, just constitutionally speaking, the ASUC president is supposed to do 3 things, right? And that's to make sure to maintain the well-being of the organization, to represent the organization to administration, and a veto in case that ever comes up. But what that means, there's a lot of leeway in what it says to maintain the well-being of the organization, right? So I just want to emphasize that is such an important thing because the ASUC president is here to actually maintain the well-being of the organization. That can mean that anything, I would not use my personal opinion to impose my position onto the campus. And I know that there's tricky water there because my personal opinion can be misconstrued as what the ASUC feels. But I will make sure that as president, I use my position to ensure that the ASUC's well-being is being maintained in different ways. Whether that's following what the Constitution calls for, like you said, a recall election that was called upon by 1,000 signatures, not necessarily by the ASUC Senate or by individuals in the ASUC. So it's really important to highlight the fact that there's a reason why the ASUC president is allowed to take certain stances. And that's so long as we're maintaining the well-being of the organization. But it's really important to not use that title to impose your opinion on someone else and on the student campus. And yeah, so that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'd first like to start out by saying that in the financial crisis that we're in, it is extremely irresponsible to work and to allow, or I guess let your personal opinions contribute to a recall election that costs $20,000. I think, first and foremost, even if you assume it's okay to let your personal stance get involved in this whole issue, you have to be sure of what you're saying in the first place. Assuming it's not, which I believe, I think it should not play a factor at all. I believe that the responsibility of good leadership, not a responsibility, it's more of a burden. When you take this on, you have to understand that you become a role model, and people look up to you. And when you tell a group of people, or a listserv, or your friends something, that they look up to you as the ASUC president, and they'll take your word for it. And if that might allow something to happen that may or may not otherwise happen. I believe you should lead something like a recall election, which allows for 1,000 signatures to be gathered, to the students themselves. And as the previous speaker mentioned, so look out for the overall health and well-being of the Senate is the job of the ASUC president. So I believe, if anything, you should be able to talk to the students about what is actually at stake. What does $25,000, what does $20,000 mean in the financial crisis? Where are student groups going to get cut from? Who's going to get money taken away from them? And how much it really means to show both sides of the issue and never letting your personal stance affect this. Because I think, as we've seen this year, divisiveness has killed our Senate, has hurt our ASUC, and has hurt our overall health. And as somebody who sees himself as a better listener than a speaker, I think it's important not to talk at people about what our views are, but to listen and to hear them out and to let students have the say in what goes on, rather than spreading stuff and spreading ideas in their heads as your position, which is extremely influential.
Thank you.
Apart from the issue of the recall, I completely disagree with the idea that the president, elected by the majority of the student body, should withdraw their personal opinions and act as a neutral person. That person is representing the student body and to fight and say their views on whole sets of issues, from the war in Iraq to the tuition hikes to affirmative action. And Obama ran for office saying, if you elect me, I'm going to be completely neutral on every issue. We wouldn't have voted for him. The reason is because we think the U.S. president actually should act in our interests and not simply be a painting on the wall. And I think that, we proudly say we are the Defend Affirmative Action Party. We proudly say we defend immigrant rights. We proudly say we're for the DREAM Act. We proudly say we're for gay rights. We proudly say we're for massive funding for public higher education so that we can start to tackle the environmental problems right now. And I'm not going to pretend, I'm not going to give generality saying I'm going to listen to everybody in order not to offend anybody, in order to not lose votes and get elected.
Thank you, Ronald. The second question is, many of you have expressed lofty goals you'd like to achieve if you were elected as ASUC president. Please explain your platform and how you plan to achieve these goals, the goals it entails, given the current budget constraints. Again, many of you have expressed lofty goals you'd like to achieve if you were elected as ASUC president. Please explain your platform and how you plan to achieve the goals it entails, given current budget constraints.
So, coming out of the election, November 4th, I know people in this room want a whole lot of change that has not yet happened yet, and that there's a set of issues that we need change on, more money to public higher education, combating racism and inequality in our nation cities. And the key to changing and making the vision of hope real under the Obama era is for the college campuses, for the students, for the younger generation that made this election possible, to actually independently build our own power to fight for our demands. These college campuses need to be centers, once again, of social activism, of critical thinking, of interesting debate, of diversity, of real exchange of opinions and ideas. And our program, we are saying that the university needs to reflect the new vision of hope. It's unacceptable that this nation has, a black man can be president, but a black student or Latino student cannot come to UC-Berkeley. Black, Latino, and Native American students are majority of the state's public school students, but only 14% of the undergraduate student body on this campus. That needs to change. The SAT, which the faculty on this campus have said over and over again are biased, and is biased and does not reflect academic merit, needs to be eliminated. The actual social science of this university, the research, should actually be implemented and used to determine the policies of this university. And this should be a sanctuary campus. ICE was seen in Berkeley last spring. This should be a safe place, a haven, the nation's first sanctuary campus for undocumented immigrant students. They are our equals. They did not choose to be illegal. Everyone is equal, everyone is a human being and deserves equal rights. And by standing for everyone's right to be here, we stand for our own dignity and for everyone's rights. And we need this to be an affordable campus. We need to lower tuition. And what we got to do is mobilize the power of the new student civil rights movement. People across the country have the same questions and thoughts in our heads, want the same things.
Thank you, Ronald.
The president calls National Day of Action for more money for higher education. Okay. So first of all, I want to ensure that we continue to empower students, right, in a way that we continue to maintain autonomy. Traditionally, the ASUC has been one of the last remaining autonomous student bodies in the nation. Over time, we've seen that power be taken from us by seeing it over to the auxiliary. The auxiliary makes decisions sometimes that doesn't incorporate students' opinion. We need to find a way to make sure that the auxiliary is accountable to us. I will do that by creating an auxiliary oversight committee to ensure that the process and their realignment is including student needs. We pay for their payroll. We should have a say in what they're doing. Second of all, is student safety. So as my colleague Joan Jones mentioned earlier, I want to prioritize student safety in the office of the president. I think that that's paramount, especially with everything that's going on campus. But safety does not mean just hiring more police officers. What's the point of having more police officers if they're not culturally competent to deal with students? If they don't have sensitivity to, for example, what it's like to deal with a woman's sexual threats?
what it's like to deal with the queer students and discriminated against, what it's like to deal with communities of color who aren't always in favor of police officers, right? So I think it's really important that police officers are getting that type of training, and then we can continue student oversight of the UCPD, because that's what they're here to serve us, right? We need to make sure that they're doing that in a way that's efficient and that we have a say in their process.